Hello everyone, welcome back to whatever this is. Hold on everybody. Yeah, I just I had that rigged up wrong, Austin. We just got the tail end of the theme song. I was like, oh, I guess we're starting the show. It is time for...
Yeah, I heard too much of the end. I was like, oh no, you gotta hit pause, stop.
It's time for part 4. Sorry, part 5. Let's just start over. Let's just turn this whole thing off. No, it's time for part 5 of our impromptu history of superhero movies. Welcome everybody, thanks for watching live, and thanks for watching after the fact. If you're doing that, we've been doing this series for a few months now, and we got all the way up to 2008 last time. We actually got all the way up to 2008 the show before, and then we just kind of hung out in 2008.
That is true, yeah, we were like stuck in the entire year for that. It was nuts.
Yeah, and by year, we really just mean we talked a lot about Iron Man, and Dark Knight came up.
Yeah, pretty much. I think we spent most of the time just debating on which one was more stylized, from what I remember.
Yeah, no, that's true. There was a big argument about that, which you ultimately won, really, so congratulations to
Not
you.
Surprising. But I did it.
But no, it was kind of a lot about the birth of the MCU and how DC had, you know, Batman, and that was a big deal, and Dark Knight was, as I always say, like second coming of Christ, and that year, you know, really like changed everything and had a lot of people looking at superhero movies as a potentially more like serious and more, you know, realistic kind of venture, and that was pretty much the conversation. But that was such a big deal year that I think it was worth spending a lot of time on it. We'll probably get, I shouldn't say probably, I want to get quite a bit farther today. And
it does make me wonder though,
yeah,
like, will 2014 just be a video?
There's so much that happens that year, absolutely. But I think that could happen. I think we could kind of do what we did before, where this video we get a few years in, and then the next one it's just that 1 year. It's just 2014.
Or just 2012.
For part 6. So I don't want to spend too long speculating about how far we'll get today. But I want to open today's video, and I'll start the timer here in a second. Welcome if you're watching live. Thanks for being here, and thanks for watching later if you're doing that. Let me say this real quick, especially if this is your first time hanging out with us for one of these. We've not prepared anything for this. We're going off the top of our heads, discussing superhero movie history as linearly as we can, bringing up as many movies and talking about their influences as humanly possible. And if there is an aspect of this that you really want us to discuss, leave a question or a comment in the live comments, and feel free to leave a super chat if you want to guarantee that your topic is talked about, but we'll be scanning this as we go and talk about pre-written ideas and questions as well. And you can also fact check us if there's anything we bring up that we're off on or that we get wrong, because we're not going to be looking up anything. We're doing this completely cold and off book. It's like a blue book test that we didn't study for.
Yeah, and I never study in general, so
Is that true?
let's do it.
You're in school. You're in school right now. Is that true?
No.
I was gonna say, I thought you you kicked your own ass last week over a test.
Yeah, that's the only test I've studied for.
Is that right? Okay, so before I hit start the timer, let me just say I'd like to open this discussing kind of that in between period when things change, and then when we get to the big movies of 2012, because there's a few smaller things in the interim there that I think will be kind of interesting to tackle, and then I don't think that will be the whole hour. I think we will get into 2012, but we'll see what happens. I'm starting the timer, Austin, right now. And I want to open with this observation, and tell me what you think of this. Tell me if I'm right about this. Because I again did not prepare for this, but knowing that this is coming today, I was thinking a little bit about what we talked about last time, and I went, wait a minute. I hadn't really had this thought before. 2008 is the year that we always say, like the Joker says in Dark Knight, changed everything, right? Mm-hmm. And moving from there, you get this huge, of course, again, onslaught of superhero movies, and the genre really takes over. And by, would you say 12, at least by 14, that's when it starts feeling like the genre has really taken over movie theaters, and it's some 70-75% of Hollywood's take.
Yeah, 12 is like the boom, here we go, this is the thing. And then obviously by 14, it's fully taken over. But I feel like 12 is the boom, we're here, god dang it.
Yeah, and we're already getting overwhelmed as fans, right? We're already getting pretty inundated with this stuff, but it doesn't start to feel like everybody is talking about this. It's become so mainstream that it's the next Star Wars or something, really until Avengers. It feels like it might get to that place, but we don't really know for sure until Avengers comes out. Mm-hmm. What I noticed, something that came to me that I hadn't really thought about before today, Austin, is you get something of a sea change after 2008 every 4 years. It's like presidential elections. So
I guess, because I always think of 2016 as one of those as well, but definitely 2018 is a big one.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying, is every 4 years after 8, 12, and then 16.
Well, 14 though. 14's a bigger year than 16.
14's a bigger year in the sheer amount of these things that come out, and maybe how much money some of it makes. But let me make this point, because you get I might be totally wrong about this, but I'm gonna see this out anyway, Austin. I'm gonna force these puzzle pieces. Okay,
this is the next debate.
So 2008, well, and obviously 14 is a major year, and I'm sure you're thinking Guardians as hard as anything, and that is a big deal. But
not just that, I'm actually more so thinking of Days of Future Past and Winter Soldier more than Guardians. I actually didn't think of that until a second after I said that.
Okay, but the thing is, DC's got nothing that year. So here's why 16 is so important. Well, let me get to 12 first. So 2008, Iron Man, Batman Begins, changes things, and then in 12 you've got this kind of new sea change, because Avengers has stuck the landing for people of all these characters had their own movies together, and we changed history in putting them all in one film and realizing that romantic notion of the shared universe and getting the novelty of all of that, right? And then Dark Knight Rises is, as much as I don't like that movie, a huge roaring success, at least at the box office. and is the end of this huge successful trilogy, and that had never happened before, where you have this big, and it was a forced trilogy in my mind, but where you have these three movies, beginning, middle to end, arguably, or at least that's what Nolan was trying to make happen, and it's all one. It's all made by one team, one guy, and it ends and it never comes back. Like that had never really happened before, where we like finished something on ostensibly a high note like that. But it's also a major sea change in the sense that DC, like, they had Batman for that period, and that was their big thing, and then they have nothing else moving forward. So we've got this big kind of question mark as to what's going to happen with them, because the year before they tried to start a shared universe with Green Lantern, and obviously that didn't pan out. So now we're in this kind of big, I guess when I say sea change there, I mean Batman's done. We don't have those big two franchises anymore like we did in '08 when we changed things. And now it's the reign of the MCU, right? So we had the birth of Marvel, and Iron Man was hugely popular. Now it's reigning. Now it's all we have in the minds of a lot of viewers, right? X-Men's about to come back in a big way, that's true, but that's going to be a sidebar for most people, even though it performs pretty well. The big news is the MCU is here, and I don't think you could argue with this, Austin. For a lot of regular moviegoers, superhero movies become synonymous with the MCU. When people think superheroes, they think MCU. To the point where when I went to see Justice League, there was an old lady in the line when I got my tickets who thought she was going to Avengers. And then 2016 is when BVS comes out and doesn't pan out the way Warner's expected it to, and they start panicking like crazy and go back to the drawing board, and then you get the start of the insane chaotic period that is the DCEU. At the same time as Civil War has almost like this lightning in a bottle moment, like a double lightning moment, where it kind of, for a lot of people, captures that novelty of Avengers all over again. And it's also a really notable year because you have two huge movies from both companies about superheroes fighting each other, which we hadn't had before, and one of them really works and the other one really doesn't.
Yep.
And then, in its way, 2020 is a big change year.
Because nothing happens.
Yes. And because Marvel is pivoting to a new platform in trying to make things more about streaming. And and DC has basically given up and is about to start over.
So I've always seen it as up until 2020, obviously, and 16, 17 are like a weird. They don't fit into it. But it's like for a long time you have a really great year, then a really bad year. So you have, I will jump 4 years in the initial spot because you have 2008, really big year, and then you have 2009, which is just Origins, and then skip forward to 2012. You have 2012. We have Avengers, and people are like a little bit more mixed on Spider-Man, but like they were more positive, I think, than negative. And you have Dark Knight Rises, which was like also heralded. And then 2013 is the year of like each movie that comes out is like the worst movie ever and replaced the last movie as being the worst movie ever. Like I just remember at the time it was like, oh my god, Iron Man 3 is like the worst thing ever. They ruined the Mandarin. Oh my god, Man of Steel is the worst movie ever. Oh my god, Star Trek Into Darkness is the worst movie ever.
That's right.
Dark World is the worst movie ever. You know, like it was just like constant. And then we have.
It's also, by the way, entirely possible for that to be true, and it was. that each of those movies was worse than the last, and that, no, not exactly, but no,
I don't remember the exact order.
And then 14,
and then 14's really big, and then 2015 again drops off again, and then 2016 and then 2017 are weird because they both are kind of in the middle. Mixed. Like they have great stuff and they have bad stuff.
Well, and 2012 was that way for me and a lot of people, even though Rises made a lot of money, where you had Avengers on one end and Rises on the other.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I agree with that too. This light just went out. Uh,
Oh no! Are you gonna be able to get it back on?
oh yeah, no, they're
Are you
like
just
put
gonna
on,
do this in the dark?
no, they're put on timers. So they like just turn off. It's really annoying.
I hate that.
There we go. Sorry.
My father-in-law's
Um,
house is set up like that, and I never know what I'm supposed to do if I want to use a room that doesn't have
It's-
lights on. Yeah.
frustrating. Uh, but and then you have 2018, which is like Infinity War and Black Panther, and then
So you're saying it's sort of like the TOS movies, but in years?
yeah, exactly.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting because I never really looked at it that way. That like the even years are for the most part pretty good, and the uneven years are the bad years. That's true, but what I'm talking about is about influences. It seems like each of those 4 years kind of sets us up for what we're going to have to deal with for the next 4 years, just like a presidential election, and on the same years. It's kind of weird. But like for the next 4 years after Iron Man and Batman Begins, the rest of the industry is playing catch up to those movies, trying to, in a lot of ways, be those, and trying to figure out how to top that. And then the same thing happens after 12, and then with 16, it's one company going, how do we, keep people interested, keep topping ourselves? We're on such a high, we feel like we can do no wrong. I'm talking about Marvel. And DC
I
going...
think you're talking about Sony.
And then DC going, oh god, BVS was insanely polarizing, didn't make the money we expected it to, and now they're really scrutinizing every other project that they had in production, and are changing things at the last minute, and massively compromising the artistic integrity, such as it might have been with every project that's coming out, at least with, or I should say, especially with Suicide Squad. And then, like, that keeps happening. They'll put a thing out, and every time they put something out, it feels like they've already moved on from that, and it's a relic from an earlier time. And then we live with that for the next 4 years, and we watch, that company struggling and scrambling and trying to salvage themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't know. I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. But my thing segues perfectly into where we are, which is that we finished.
That 2011 is, sorry, that
2009 is a rough year.
It's a rough year, yeah. Well, it's gonna be hard not to just go year to year after this instead of franchises, but we'll see how this conversation works out.
Well, I'm sure we'll kind of jump back and forth.
Yeah, one of the observations I want to make about where we're at right after the big change here with 08 is you start getting movies that are more for straight up for adults, more like hard R, mature rated superhero things, now that the industry in general is more confident in this as a genre. And that's another thing.
10 has
Kick-Ass,
Super, and
9
was it Defender, I think, is that year too?
Yes, and 9, I think that's 11 maybe.
Oh, okay.
And but also that's underground enough that it didn't really make waves. But
yeah,
but
Super
you're right.
Also bombed.
But it is an example. 9 has Watchmen, which is kind of the start of that.
I forgot about Watchmen. Yeah.
So 9's got Watchmen, and you've got not that movie was super successful, but you've got big failures with this too, like The Spirit. That's 9 or 10.
I think that's 09, because 09 was when I was writing my The Spirit comics, and then I saw the trailer and went, oh, they like ripped me off. Or not ripped me off, but I was like, oh, they used the same name.
Oh yeah, you told me about
no
that.
one will ever remember that, so it's okay.
So in the mid-2000s, you do have some hard R examples of things based on comics, but most of them aren't straight up superhero. You have Sin City, you have 300, things like that. And even in the 90s, you have some of this, like Blade. Like there was always or I should say at least beginning of the 90s, The Crow, you had, and that's not hard R, that's PG-13, I think. Or is it? Maybe it is R.
But it is interesting though, because you mentioned 300 and Sin City, because you go from 300 to Watchmen and Sin City to The Spirit. So like we're also kind of taking that stuff and going, okay, that worked. Can we kind of move it into the superhero genre with those creators?
Yeah, that's right. There's almost like this subgenre that's building on itself. Constantine is kind of in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And that becomes more of a trend as, again, Hollywood gets more confident with the genre and as it's taking over more. So when you get into the mid 2010s, and that was the other reason that I wanted to bring up 2016 as a big sea change moment. We also start to get really heavy into anti-hero movies, and that I think has a lot to do with the popularity of, well, see, I can't even really say that. I was gonna say I think it's like what's in the air in the moment, where it's like companies trying to do what Marvel's doing, but not be too much like Marvel. You know what I mean? Like find the group that isn't necessarily being targeted as much by Marvel. So DC is going, well, our movies have to be really serious and can't have jokes in them. You remember that whole thing? Where for a while there was this rumor going around that there was this mandate that DC had from on high. Our movies don't have humor anymore. We're not doing that. And so you get this period in 2016 and after where we start wanting to make more movies about the bad guys. And so 2016 is Deadpool, and Suicide Squad is that year. And so the other companies that aren't Marvel are doing the non-family movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And Sony was supposed to make, like, there's also a lot of stuff that was supposed to happen in that period like that. Sony was supposed to make the Sinister Six movie, and I want to say that was supposed to be that year or was announced that year. I forget, because it never came out.
It maybe was 2017. I can't remember, because 2016 was Amazing 3. And I can't remember when Sinister Six was, but Drew Goddard on a team movie is like the ultimate curse, because he had that and he had X-Force.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And both of them are gone.
I struggled to articulate that a little bit, but do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. You just get like kind of more of those anti-hero stuff kind of going up against Marvel.
And I just thought that was, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but I thought that was kind of building a bit on the early 2000s, where we start doing more hard R comic book things made, specifically for adults. And it was really awkward early on. Now we're all used to this, and I don't think you have the problem as much of parents just assuming that everything based on a superhero thing or based on a comic book is for children. Because in 2009, you had reports of like families taking their kids to Watchmen because they had superhero costumes, and they go, oh no!
Well, my mom and I started watching it, and we got like early on to the scene when Silk Spectre's getting raped, and my mom was like, this is smut, and turned it off. And then like 2 weeks later, I was at my dad's house, and he was like, hey, my cousin's in this movie. Let's watch it. I don't know what it is, but it's called Watchmen. And and that was how I first watched it. And that was cool.
That's crazy.
And then I got like really, really big into that and read the book shortly after. And then I had to go back home to my mom and be like, yeah, that Watchmen thing, yeah, it's not smut. It's like an actual like cool story.
You should have said, no, it is, and I watched it.
I went to Dad's house and I watched it, just so you know.
Let me read a couple comments real quick. Daniverse says, technically the original Star Wars trilogy also counts as ending on a big note. So you're talking about superheroes, exclusively about superhero stuff. So when I say that's the first time that happened, I mean in superhero movies. Obviously, that's not the first time that happened, but it's still very, very rare. And even Star Wars, I will say this. Even Star Wars is a little bit different with that because it's not technically the same director all the way through.
No, each three is a different director,
So
or each one is a different three.
yeah, so I mean, you do have one creative mastermind that's involved in all of it, but I don't know if even across the spectrum of genre movies, if the Nolan thing had ever happened before, where you've got specifically this 3 movies that are all pretty successful, and the last 2 very successful critically and commercially, made by one director and never again. I don't know that that's ever happened.
For like a good comic book trilogy?
No, for any trilogy.
Oh, just for any trilogy.
Yeah, all made by the same person, all successful, never made another one.
I mean, we're still early, but Guardians.
That's true.
Which
That's
is
true.
just
That
my
has happened,
favorite comic book trilogy.
But I don't think it ever happened before that.
Mm-hmm. The Ant-Man trilogy.
Oh. Was that the same director all the way through? I guess it was.
Yes, because
Sam
it would
Raimi,
have
but
been Gunn to be the first MCU director to do all 3, and then Ant-Man snuck in. And Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man snuck in first.
okay, no, that's true. Back to the Future and Lord of the Rings both have this, but Lord of the Rings was all made at the same time.
Yes.
So I wasn't thinking that way.
And you just hate Lord of the Rings, so
No, that's not true. That's not true. But obviously he's right about Back to the Future. I wasn't thinking about that. Okay. So it's rare, but it's happened.
Mm-hmm. Anyways.
Well, that's true, because we never came back and made another one of those. Thank goodness.
I know, right?
Now Raimi Spider-Man kind of counts, because 3 is not critically successful, but it made money.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that one's weird too, because like he was making 4, and then it gets shut down.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
But no, I'm glad Holy jumped in with that, because he's right about that. Well, I'm in a superhero headspace, so I shouldn't bring up anything else. I'll just say stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
Holy says Back to the Future 2 and 3 were also shot back to back, though. That's a good point. That's true too.
Yeah.
We have this very narrow, specific thing that I'm talking about with Nolan that's never happened before because it's so specific. Okay, so going back and reiterating a little bit. So between 08 and 12, let's talk about some things that happen in there. Obviously, one of the biggest notable things is the failure of Green Lantern. And then the other one is the failure of Origins. And both of those have Ryan Reynolds in them.
Yeah, exactly. And Deadpool should have been recast after that.
He doesn't like Ryan Reynolds. I like the first Deadpool quite a bit. I think I gave it a 3.5 or a 4.
I just don't like Deadpool in general. So Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool are perfect to each other.
Yeah, and that's totally fair, but you know, I'm holding it to its own terms, and for the movie they wanted to make, I think that movie's great. But anyway, I think Ryan Reynolds had to make Deadpool just to make up for the year 2011.
For Green Lantern?
For Green Lantern. I guess the years 09 and 2011, because I think Origins was 09, was it not?
And Origins 09, yeah. And Blade Trinity, too, was before that.
Wow, and he's in that, too. He's got a trilogy of crap superhero movies.
Well, and Blade Trinity is the reason why Wesley Snipes will be, like, the one actor that can't come back for Deadpool 3, right?
Yeah. Good call. I didn't even think about that. And that's so weird because that kind of starts this whole thing because he with Deadpool, because he's essentially doing what he'll do for Deadpool before he even knows what Deadpool is.
And of course, do you know who
Blade
told him...
Trinity, pardon me.
And do you know who told him on the set that he was basically Deadpool, which is what started it?
Yep. Yeah.
Patton Oswalt.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So it all goes back to
I missed
Patton
where you're
Oswalt.
going with that. Freaking Patton Oswalt. I didn't know that.
That's what I've always heard. Yeah, so Patton Oswalt was like, "Dude, you're doing like a Deadpool thing."
Oh, Danvers is right. It's more of a quadrilogy because Ryan Reynolds is also in R.I.P.D. and that's a comic book movie.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Ryan Reynolds had a really bad career.
He did. No, it's nuts
'Cause
that he came back the way he did.
that was also the point when I think he was married to Scarlett Johansson and she left him because his career was bad.
I didn't know about that either.
I don't know if
Wow.
they were married. They were at least together.
Well, at least in the eyes of fans, he redeemed himself with those Deadpool movies.
Yeah, exactly. He's had like a big comeback.
And now he's everywhere. And like, I like him more than you do, but I'm sick of him too.
Yeah.
I'm in the minority. I like Detective Pikachu, okay, and I thought that was gonna be terrible, but I kind of dug that movie fine. But not enough to watch. What was that? What was that video game movie he made?
Oh, Free Guy.
Free Guy, yeah.
Which is the director of Deadpool 3.
Is it really? Yeah, I didn't bother with Free Guy. Anyway, we're wasting a lot of time here. So,
Yes, we are.
So
And so then we also have Thor, Kick-Ass, and Captain America: First Avenger. Those are the other big superhero movies before Avengers.
That happened in between there, yeah. And so Marvel is, even though they're in this kind of experimental phase and still finding themselves, they're firing on mostly all cylinders. In that, oh wow, he's got a dog.
No, shut up! No one's there.
In
We
that
actually listened to that.
each of the Avengers that they're setting up for their big Avengers movie are enticing people and interesting people, and for my money and a lot of people's, Thor has always been their weakest franchise, going all the way back even to the first movie, and it's solid enough, but it looked pretty weak in comparison to the other movies they had at that point, especially because it comes out the same year Captain America does, and it's such a better movie.
The year before.
Oh, is it the year before?
It's the year before. Yeah, I agree with that. Thor is like a perfectly fine setup movie. Like it's
and a lot of
not
people say
awful.
Incredible Hulk is their weakest movie of those. It's not my favorite, but it's just not. It's a decent script.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like it's fine.
Thor is definitely the weakest of those, and
It's the most formulaic. I would argue that Thor really starts what people think of as the Marvel formula we can't get out of.
Oh yeah, in what way?
It's so kind of blatant and cookie cutter about its character arc, where it's like it's really obligatory. And then when you get into the movies that don't work in the later phases, there's a lot of that, right?
The only thing to like make it more of like a post like 2016
and some forced
2018.
comedy, not as much as Dark World, but it has that problem.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that would make it more like a later MCU thing is if the Warriors 3 got more to do, oddly enough.
That's true.
Because in so many of these new ones, your hero kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
No, that's a good point. It's not a team movie. But those in the early days they could make singular character movies.
No, and I've always thought that they had like just enough to do in that first movie, and that they're set up, we know who they are. They kind of do a thing in the third act, and they don't take over the movie. And you know who his friends are, and it's perfectly set up for him to go on adventures with them later.
Nick Young says Cappy and Thor were 2011. I thought so.
I thought, oh, you know,
they came out the same summer.
You know why I'm thinking
So remember that this is how I remember it, okay? So Thor comes out, and then when you go see no, because usually I'm wrong and you're right, so I get to revel in this. So
well, no, I know exactly what happened. Is because I know that there is a gap year in 2009.
Yeah.
And then, moving forward, they have at least one movie. And I forgot Iron Man 2 is 2010. So one of them is in 2010. So that's why I forgot Iron Man 2 existed. Which is funny because we talked about Iron Man 3 right after Avengers.
But the reason I remember that is because I remember being in the theater, because back then, it was a simpler time. We were all a lot more naive. The connective tissue between these movies was very exciting. And you see Thor, and then a few months later you go to, or a couple months later you go to Captain America, and you get the line toward the beginning about Red Skull, where he's like looking through Odin's treasure
vault.
room. Yeah, that's how I remember it.
Yeah.
Because like, oh cool, I just saw that movie, and this is immediately referencing it.
Well, and another big thing too is I didn't see those movies in the theater. Like I don't see Thor or Captain America until like probably 2013. Like it's when the Phase
Yeah.
1 box set comes out. Because I was like, I don't like Thor or Captain America, so I'm not going to their movie.
Well, and I'm. You just reminded me of another point I wanted to make real briefly, because I don't want to make these videos too much about us and what we do here. But from here forward, we have on the channel covered all of this stuff. So like we've now caught up to the birth of Geekvolution, which is '09.
Until we get to the Captain Underpants movie, and then
Oh yeah, I missed that.
which is going to be a whole episode in and of itself. So it's going to be real awkward.
Yeah, it's shocking how influential that film was, and I didn't cover it.
Exactly.
You know? That was a sea change year because of Captain Underpants. What year did that come out?
That came out.
Was
Yeah.
18, 19? Earlier than that? No, earlier than that.
17, 16.
It had a Weird Al song in it. That's all I know about it.
That's all I know about it too.
Let me read these super chats real quick. Dan Schneider, $10. Patton Oswalt is a major comic geek. That's why he has to be in every single geek project. I mean, yeah, we know this. And play the same character every time. He's the geek stand-up comedian who got famous talking about the prequels. I didn't realize that's how he got famous.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know. Look, I just have never liked Patton Oswalt. Like even as a kid, I was like, "Oh my god, I hate Ratatouille because I hate listening to his voice."
So
and I didn't even know who that was.
So real quick, he's because I don't want to waste too much time on this. He's one of those guys that was always there apparently, and I didn't learn about him till way later, and then retroactively I find out he's in things.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I didn't know who the voice of the rat in Ratatouille was. I don't become aware of Patton Oswalt until Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you told me that before.
I saw that and I didn't know who that guy was, but he was played like it was some kind of clever cameo, and I was like, who's this comic relief guy? I don't even know who this is.
Why is the guy the like exposition man from Blade Trinity in the show? Why is he a big deal?
They're making a big deal out of this guy, and then I can't get away from him. He just shows up in everything after that. Mm-hmm. Bob the Hun, $2 super chat. And actually Austin made exactly this point in our previous stream. Incredible Hulk 08 has the best Hulk in the MCU.
It does, yeah. And because I don't rewatch these things, I don't know if I brought this up, but now we know because that guy, the director of that, was just in like some podcast, and now we know he was offered Thor and Guardians when they were looking for directors for those, which would have been really weird. I'm ultimately glad he didn't get those.
Yeah, well, of course, especially with the Guardians, and like, who knows what the landscape would look like if Guardians hadn't happened, or somebody else made it, or you just didn't catch on. Yeah, because that was such a right time, right place kind of thing. But we'll get there.
Yeah,
hopefully next time.
If I remember correctly from back then, like I remember him being, like, right into the like Hulk being able to talk like is unrealistic. And I just think of like that as being your creative voice for Thor and Guardians, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that.
So let's check in on where the status quo is for each of our big franchises during this this kind of transition period where we're waiting for Avengers and seeing if they can stick the landing with that. So Batman is in the best place it's ever been in history, and arguably up till now. I mean, like, Rises was obviously a huge success too, but did it make the money Dark Knight did?
Oh, it made more. Yeah.
Did it make more? Okay.
That was, yeah.
But, people very quickly went back and reassessed that and were like, oh, we were all on a high. This movie wasn't as good as we thought it was. And there's still people that love that movie, don't get me wrong, but like obviously retroactively, like it's not going to be remembered in the same way that Dark Knight was. But
I still remember seeing that, like, oh, that was the first movie I ever saw opening day, and I was like so excited to see it.
Yeah. I was worried about that movie from the beginning.
I don't know. I was mm, yeah, like 15.
Yeah, no, I get it. You were a teenager, but
Yeah.
like from that initial teaser trailer, it was like something feels really off about this.
Hmm. And I was like, this looks cool. It's Batman.
Anyway, so Batman's at this massive high, best place it had ever been in at that point, arguably ever, even to now. And then Marvel is just thinking of like MCU as a franchise, right? Like it's very much on its way. Again, it's changing stuff. Now people care about Thor. Now people care about Captain America. Now people are curious about Hawkeye and Black Widow. And then Spider-Man is a no-show. We've got no
He's
Spider-Man.
lost in development hell, yeah.
Yeah.
And with the MCU, it's interesting too, because I don't think like Phase One's interesting. I don't know if it ever topped Iron Man. Um, it made Thor like a household name, made Captain America household names, but I don't think any of those movies lived up to that first Iron Man, which I think is interesting. Captain America's close, but it has a really weak third act.
It has an ending that doesn't even logically make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's some like really wonky CG in the third act too.
And we talked a lot last show about we gotta get past Iron Man, okay? About some of the silly stuff that's in that third act. First Avengers still has a weaker third act.
Than what?
Than Iron Man.
Than Iron Man?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Even with some of that goofiness where it starts to feel like it's degenerated into a real typical superhero movie.
Iron Man degenerates, but it's in a way that's really fun. And like you can enjoy it. And Captain America degenerates to the point where you go like okay, what? And a lot of the action in the third act doesn't look good.
That's true. Is it the start of the notorious MCU green screen problem? Because there's some really bad green screen in that third act.
There's some really bad green screen. And I've always just looked at it as they don't have like the infinite budget at that point yet, so like it's part of that too.
But how does the Abomination fight look better than that?
By a wide margin.
But yeah, because you've got two fully CG characters, and yet like huge characters ripping up Harlem.
But same with Iron Man, and it's funny because the worst looking thing in that first.
No, but Iron Man, at least some of that is like guys in suits here and there. Like it's all CG.
For Tony, I don't know if any of Ironmonger is.
I know, but at least you got one guy in a suit. Yeah, I don't know about Ironmonger either.
But the worst looking thing in First Avengers, like when they get in the car and they're chasing the plane.
Oh, I know. That's burned into my brain. It looks like a fan film. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know exactly.
But yeah, I think it's important to note that while we're getting like general public is starting to get overwhelmed by the popularity of superhero movies all of a sudden, one of the things that really got the ball rolling on this much earlier was Spider-Man, and there's no Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. No, it is interesting.
Like, you don't get any of this if it doesn't have that opening weekend it had all the way back in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And that franchise has ended, and Sony is scrambling to figure out how to reboot it. And I still say to this day, well, and I mean, in hindsight, it's very easy to say this, but I was saying it back then. They rebooted too soon. They should have given it a few more years.
Well,
or made that deal with Marvel earlier and gotten him rebooted him through MCU. I don't want to say through Avengers, but through MCU somewhere.
But both reboots would have been both reboots come like the year after when they like the next sequel is supposed to come out, right? Because isn't Spider-Man 4 supposed to be 2011? Or is that clearer than that and I'm wrong?
Well, Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know the timeline for when they started development for 4, because I know there was concept art and stuff.
But it might have been 2009.
They started a pre-production process. I don't know what the announcement, if there ever was one, was for a date. But I think I think we can generously say 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so around there. Um, yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm wrong about what I was saying then.
Sure. And
But
then
anyways,
X-Men is all of a sudden in a big limbo because they've had two big duds in a row, and one of them is a prequel, which is like a death kiss
and not
to
just a
me.
prequel, but also a spin-off of the most popular character, and even that couldn't sell.
Yeah.
I'm sure that movie made money, but
Yeah, but people didn't
you know what
care
I mean.
after that.
Yeah.
Like, because X3 also sold, but people felt weird about it. And I don't think it was, like, universally hated, but, you know, it wasn't like, obviously, like X2 was, and it kind of felt like the end of something. And then we're like, well, we're going to do what we do with everything. Because even then, it felt like this is what we're now doing with everything. We got to go back. So we'll do a solo Wolverine movie, and we can't just do a Weapon X thing. It's got to be X-Men Origins. It can't just be a Wolverine movie. It's also got to have all these other X-Men, and it's got to have a Professor X cameo at the end, and it's got to have every element of
Cyclops and Emma
prequelitis.
Frost. And
And it's got to have every element of prequelitis, the worst prequels, including the Star Wars prequels, kind of starting a lot of that, have, where we can't be consistent with anything, and we have to be with the history, and we have to be really contrived about how to make a lot of the big moments happen. Like his memories won't grow back.
well, that's also a movie that's like flying by the seat of its pants. Like I don't. I watched a video a while back on the
It
making
also
of.
has awful CG.
It does, yeah. The first time I ever watched that movie was in the version that leaked like 6 months earlier with like no
Remember that?
effect.
I didn't
I
see it.
still own that. It's
Do you
great.
really? I didn't
Yeah.
see it because I didn't want to be spoiled with it.
I was so excited when I was like, because in that year, my mom was going to this flea market where you could buy like bootleg DVDs, and we were there at one point. And I'm still that like I'm young enough that I'm not really following this stuff. So to me, I'm like, oh, like Wolverine, that's coming out in like months, but it's here. Like I can just watch it. Like it's already done. And so I watched it, and it was the greatest thing ever.
See, I was sad when reports came out, after that leaked, that the movie was rough, and not just because things were missing. Like,
Yeah, it was a bad
people were
movie.
already saying, this movie's not good, because I thought it had I thought it had a decent trailer, at least at the time, and I think I probably liked it better in the theater than I did later. But I mean,
Mhm.
like,
When
it wasn't great. It wasn't the Superman Returns thing. Whereas, like, we
no,
all went
I
to that
think
and loved it and then wondered what was wrong with us later.
I think X3 and Origins are the two best bad X-Men movies. In that X3 is just like the best out of the bad ones, and then Origins is just funny. Like there's so many just baffling choices that you can sit back and laugh at.
Yeah, I
Uh,
haven't looked at it in a long time, and like
it's not boring.
I used to kind of I take that stuff more seriously than I do now because that series redeemed itself later, and so
Yeah,
it is easier now to go back to those train wrecks. When it's all we had, like pre First Class, it was painful. It was depressing because that was one of my, at that point, maybe even my favorite of the superhero movie franchises, and I really loved Wolverine. And so, you know, seeing how Professor X was done dirty in X3 was really painful for me. And then Origins just being embarrassing. I was
hmm
like, I never want to have to sit through this again. And then I did this channel, and then I had to watch it a number of times. And those early commentaries, when we did those, like X3 and Origins, were two of the hardest movies to get through. I don't have that as much now, certainly. And I haven't watched. It'll be fun to do that with you, because I haven't seen Origins in forever, and it'll be easier to laugh at, after the main gold stuff.
One, it's yeah. I think it's like a
And
twofold,
even after
right?
Days of Future, even if and I guess one of the main gold movies is before that, but like even if Logan had never happened, you've at
Mhm.
least got Days of Future Past.
Well, you got two things, right? Though, like you have okay, but we made good movies again after that, and we made way worse movies after that.
That's
So like,
Yeah, that's true too.
X3 and Origins are bad, but they're not
They're not
boring.
Apocalypse.
They're not Apocalypse. They're
They're not
not
Dark
Dark
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
They're not New
Uh,
Mutants.
mhm, exactly.
No,
They're
no,
not
it
like
keeps going.
They're not like some of the most boring things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I can have some enjoyment out of them, which is the same thing I have with Spider-Man 3 now. Where like, yeah, that movie doesn't work, but it's still the best of the bad ones to me because there's just better material. Like it looks better than the other bad ones, and just things like that.
X-Men might be, I don't want to be hyperbolic. It's one of,
Yeah.
if not the, and I'm going to say even outside of superhero now, hit and miss franchises of all time. Like,
No, absolutely is.
like 007 level.
I would say it's way more hit or miss.
Maybe
than
even more,
007.
maybe even more hit or miss than that.
I like more like the ratio for me on 007's way more in the like than X-Men.
Yeah, just even looking at a percentage, because obviously there's a smaller movie count.
Yeah, because
But
there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, like I really like the X-Men movies, and I stop and go, yeah, but I only really like maybe 3 of them.
Yeah. And I like more of them than you do because Deadpool counts and I like those. Okay, I mean, Deadpool 2
Yeah.
I have huge problems with, but it's still entertaining. Like there's still fun stuff in it that, you know, I don't have with the X-Men movies that don't work.
No, absolutely.
You know?
Oh yeah, that was the
What
other
Dark
thing.
Phoenix really need is Domino, is what I'm saying. That's what it really needed was Domino. She was great.
Dark Phoenix needed a heartbeat.
Isn't it weird? I know we're jumping all over the place. Isn't it weird when you have that feeling in the theater where you simultaneously go, this movie has no energy and is not justifying its own existence at all, and it's also 45 minutes too short? How can both of those things be true? But they were.
No, and it's funny because I haven't seen an X-Men. I mean, I've seen the spin-offs, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But like Days of Future Past was my last X-Men movie in the theater because like I saw the trailers for Apocalypse and I was like, oh,
Well, when I said
ruined it.
theater, I
It's
just mean
done.
first time you
Oh,
see
okay,
something.
yeah.
That's
So
all I mean when I say
I
that. It's
watched it
just
on TV like way later.
all I mean is, don't get in the weeds with it. All I mean is, how weird is it the first time you see a thing where you're like, there's nothing going on here, and how's it over already? It's a very strange feeling.
I know it's terrible. Well, with Dark Phoenix, it was like, oh my god, this is going on forever, and oh, now the MCU is invaded. It's got that whole thing.
Yeah, it's weird that as popular, obviously, as MCU gotten for as long as that's been running, so far anyway, X-Men still has the record for the longest, technically shared universe. That's all in the same continuity, and with successful movies, but like hit or miss. Like some of them performed really well, some of them didn't. It keeps going back and forth. I mean, it's such a bipolar franchise, and it's nuts the way it kept falling off and coming back. We're still in that transition period in 2011, same year that Green Lantern comes out, and you say with the odd years are bad, but First Class is great.
Well, like I said, I think it goes from 2008, and then you have to kind of skip to 12. Like
Okay,
the
sure.
years in the middle don't really count because they don't really work.
Sorry, I missed that you said that, but that's true. Those years
But
don't really count.
X-Men's the best thing in 2011, and 2011 overall is a pretty good year. Obviously, like I haven't seen Green Lantern, nobody likes it, and oh no, Jonah Hex is the year before. That's 2010.
10. Yeah, what else did we even get in 11 besides those two movies?
From DC, I think that's
from anything. No, it just for superhero, just Green Lantern and First Class.
2011?
Like what else even was there?
Thor.
Thor and Cat. Sorry, those were all 11. Okay, so those were your movies, and yeah,
that's what I was saying. Like, I think First Class is like hands down the best movie of that year. Like, it steals it
easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And First Class is also a really interesting movie because it had everything stacked against it and handled things in really counterintuitive ways, but was great and was really well liked. So it was in a franchise that kind of felt dead, that kind of felt like it had been over longer than it had. There's only 2 years in between the last X-Men movie with Origins and First Class, and nobody was even talking about that franchise anymore. I think it felt like it was dead because Origins almost didn't feel like it should count. It was a mulligan. So it kind of felt like that franchise had been dormant since '07, even though it hadn't, right? And then...
Arrow 6.
And then by the time No, isn't that '07?
3 is '06.
Is 306? Anyway, there's a lot of movies we're talking about. So, by the time you get to First Class, it has one of the smartest, most subtle advertising campaigns I've ever seen. Because that movie was nearly a sleeper drop. And it didn't feel like Fox didn't believe in it. It felt like they were just being really smart. It was almost like they trusted it so much they didn't need to put it in our faces that hard. That's what it felt like. And like,
but it's also interesting because, you know, we make fun of this a lot with the Fantastic Four movies. But that is a movie to keep the rights, right? Like they rushed that like really hard. They had like a really short window. First Class, yeah, like, they had a short window to make it, and wanted to like really rush it.
Okay, but they got lucky that they had a really competent guy and a
but that's
really
what I'm
good
saying,
script.
though. Like it's the time where Fox goes, okay, we need to keep the rights. Somebody make a movie. You have like 8 months to make this movie, and
is that true though? I mean, I've never heard that.
That's what I've always heard about First Class. Yeah, is that Vaughn was given like barely any time to make it, and it was like,
well, yeah, but why would it be a right? What did they have to make one every 2 or 3 years?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, because that's what we always say with those types of movies. But I mean, I'm sure they probably still had time.
But like they just had
like
one a couple of years before.
Yeah, but it is like a very rushed movie, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. No, I actually didn't know that about it. But
yeah, and then they turn around and they make the best X-Men movie.
Well,
I just think that's really interesting.
And it had such a sleek trailer, but they didn't, like I said, they didn't overdo the advertising. So like if you saw that, you'd be like really curious about it. It's one of those trailers where you can't tell what it is right away. But again, also counterintuitive in that it's a prequel, soft reboot, you know, halfway reimagining thing. Everything about it is like awkward and off, because it can't decide if it's a reboot or not.
And it could have gone either way.
And it works on just the strength of the storytelling and the acting, you know, in casting, where you go, okay, I don't really understand how this fits into this continuity, but Origins also already ruined all of that, so who cares? Like, how do you have
even 3?
I know I've said this before. Yeah, how do you have a franchise whereby your 4th movie, you've already destroyed any semblance of continuity? I mean, it's amazing, right? And then by First Class, you know, and I've done this, but you can, in other videos, you can nitpick it to death all day long and pick apart how that movie cannot fit in the same continuity as the other X-Men movies, but it didn't matter because it was so good. And like, I remember a lot of fans were frustrated that was the cast that is your First Class, that it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. It's not the original 5.
And it's like, if it's kind of a reboot, why don't you just straight up reboot it and let it be the original 5? And all of those were valid, you know, early concerns. And, like, I still feel that way about it, but the movie was good, so who cares?
Well, I think a big thing, too, is that I feel like if we did the original 5, those characters are big enough that it would have kind of stolen some of the limelight, I think, from what that movie's really about.
Yeah, sure.
But, because, you know, I think it's easy to go, okay, well, we have, you know, Jean Grey and Cyclops and Iceman and, like, all these really big characters. Like, they need more to do. And I think that maybe would have taken away from what that movie's doing.
Oh, you're saying it would have taken too much of the screen time away from those two guys, because that's what the movie's about.
Mm-hmm. I just wonder, like, maybe you could have
probably so.
It. I feel like there would be more worry about doing that.
I just
although it is Cyclops, and Cyclops gets nothing to do ever. So.
No, that's true. I just wanted to vocalize what you meant by what that movie's about, in case people didn't understand what you meant. No, I'm just saying, taking away from those two guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point I'm making is that movie shouldn't have worked at all. and it's wild that it did, and kind of ironic because you just had I was just complaining about the horrible prequelitis thing with Origins. The very next thing you do is another prequel.
Mhm.
I also think
Well,
that
and that movie got sued for because they were doing a Origins Magneto movie, and they got sued by the screenwriters of that.
yeah,
So it's like,
and
you know,
and you
they were
gotta
sucking.
you gotta
That
wonder what was in their
right.
script.
Yeah, definitely. I am sure some of it is just, well, what else do you do? Like, this is the background we built with Magneto.
Yeah, yeah. How
You know,
much of it is just comic things that were always going to be in that background? Like,
our movie also opened with him in the concentration camp.
yeah, you know what it was? It was the horns on the helmet. They went, hey, our script had horns on the helmet.
If I could guess, I would imagine that movie is probably, villain runs the concentration camp, and then the rest of the movie is Magneto getting revenge on them. So I'm imagining that that's the kind of section that they sued over. But what else do you do with that?
Is
Like, of
anybody
course,
else
that's
really glad that movie didn't get made?
yeah, because
But
we got a very James Bondy X-Men movie set in the '60s
but
and
yeah,
made for history nerds.
well, and I've just always been a big fan of, obviously Xavier and that relationship and that kind of dynamic of the best friends turn bitter enemies is like one of my favorite things in fiction and particularly superhero stuff. But real quick, I
Well,
was just gonna say,
yeah,
I think that the writers in the studio kind of had an out with that, where whichever way it went, as far as how people responded to that movie, they could call it a straight up reboot or not.
yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, it could have gone either way.
And
Absolutely.
it ends up being more awkward when you get to Days of Future Past. And I mean, as much as I love that, it's deeply flawed, especially as far as continuity is concerned. Because
And
you
it's got, yeah.
just can't make it all match.
Mhm. Well, that's another case of Fox rushing things because now we know that Vaughn wanted to do that as a third movie, and
Right.
then Fox went, "No, it's your second. By the way, you're not directing this either."
But with all of that, it's still kind of astounding that that movie turned out as well as it did.
Hmm.
Like neither of
Yeah.
this should have worked out, and then Apocalypse is terrible. So you just you can't have third time is not the charm
Hmm.
in this
Yeah,
case.
because at least Days of Future Past is built off of like a Vaughn script, and then Apocalypse is based off of a Kimberg script.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then Kinberg directs the next one.
mhm. And parts of Fant Four Stick.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Good job, Kinberg.
Go get him.
We're very proud of you, sir.
I just hope he gets to reboot the X-Men for the MCU and do Dark Phoenix as the first thing, just so we can
As
have a
the
trilogy.
first thing of Dark
Yeah.
Phoenix, where and none of them have anything to do with aliens.
No, it'll be like, oh, by the way, we just met this girl, Jean Grey. She's got like a evil Phoenix personality.
And Bob the Hun put it in a $2 super chat and talking about First Class. He said Vaughn literally only had 1 year to make it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it was like a really rushed production.
Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. X-Men Origins Magneto was supposedly ripped off by First Class. Young Magneto hunting Nazi is the writer for that unmade movie. Tried to sue Fox, which you just talked about, but I didn't see that we had a super chat about it.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that either. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that is what else do you do? Like, I don't necessarily know that they ripped off that script, but I haven't seen that script, so.
Yeah, I could see that going either way.
No, exactly.
And I could also sort of see their side on it, I guess.
Mhm.
It really just depends on how specifically similar that story was.
Mhm. Is he killing people with a coin? Because if that's the case, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, did it have anything to do with the what's the big historic event that movie's built around?
The
The
Cuban
Cuban
Missile
Missile Crisis. Yeah, is it? Did it have that in that script? Because
Yeah, which that's one of the big things that like is part of why I don't like the ones after it. Or, sorry, not that I dislike them, but why I don't like them as much as First Class is that I like that First Class is like deeply rooted into the '60s to the point where we're doing stuff with world events like that, and we never really do that after that. And it's I don't know. I think it's just a shame. Like I wanted a lot more of that moving forward.
we lose more of it as we go along. Like we do a little bit.
We get like a scene in Vietnam in
It,
Days of Future Past.
well, but it's not just about seeing it. Like a lot of what's going on with Days of Future Past actually does have to do with the Vietnam War, which I appreciate, and it does feel very 70s. But then you get to Apocalypse. It doesn't even matter what year it takes place in.
See, and I have that in Days of Future Past. Like I think there's a little bit of Vietnam stuff, but it's not enough. And half of the time throughout that movie, like with the exception of obviously like '70s clothes, like I'm forgetting that it's a '70s period piece.
Well, we can agree to disagree on that. I've never
Yeah.
had that with that movie, and I always liked the idea that sorry, we're talking about so many different movies. I'm trying to remember character names and stuff. But
Magneto.
stop. Well, that's not helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Sentinel making guy.
Oh, Trask.
That Trask's whole in getting his Sentinels made is we just lost this war.
Mm-hmm. I just don't think there's enough done with that. But I don't think there's enough done with Trask in general. I think he's really underdeveloped personally. But
that's fine.
We'll
We're not here to review the movies right now.
yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Well, that is an hour.
Oh, we did it.
But we got through. Yeah, I shouldn't have made the thumbnail Avengers. I'll change it and I'll put Avengers in next time.
The second I saw Avengers, I was like, we're not gonna hit Avengers, are we?
Eh.
We did get quite a bit of X-Men done though.
Yeah, so that was good.
We kind of just generally talked about that whole franchise a little bit.
Yeah, this was a lot more like all the way through 2010s, and then we really spotlighted that kind of transition period before you get to Avengers. So I don't know, we got more done than last time.
I guess. No, what am I saying? Because we only did 1 year last time.
Yeah, no, we got quite a bit more done. Anyway,
we got 3 years in.
Josh agrees with me and says he thinks the 70s stuff works in Days of Future Past. It also had a lot more like specific cultural references and things where Apocalypse was just so lazy with all of that.
Yeah.
And there was some nice and like related thematically to things that were happening, which was really nice. And it remembered things like that is the year that Bob Barker's Price is Right starts, and Quicksilver's mom is watching that. Like it's that year. Like that's a cool detail. And then you've got like Beast watching an episode of TOS about time travel, and TOS is in the 60s, but the early 70s is when it was getting replayed like crazy and when it got really popular. The Sanford and Sons thing, like it's like there's plenty of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is I just missed that we're like right in the heart of like big cultural events in First Class. Like I wanted more of that. Like I wanted more of the X-Men flying around the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah, that was the stuff that I wanted.
Yeah, but in First Class, you get that one big set piece at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just wanted more of that. Could I not have had like more like X-Men fighting in Vietnam stuff? I don't know. That's all I'm asking.
Well, it sounds like you just wanted a different movie than the one they made.
Yeah,
which I didn't walk into that movie going, "Oh, I need Vietnam." Really and also, they did the JFK thing, but they didn't feel the need to actually make the movie that, and that's good.
Which is fair, but I also don't really find the JFK thing that interesting. But, anyways,
I think it's a cool idea. I don't understand it. Like,
It also makes Magneto look really dumb.
It's oddly contrived, and that's my problem with it, but I wish it was. The idea that JFK himself was a mutant is awesome, and like I really like that idea.
When I first watched it, I was like, oh, he's obviously lying. And then I went home and I watched your spoiler cast, and I was like, wait a minute. That was supposed to be real? Oh.
What made you think he was lying?
Because I was like, in what way does that make sense? Like, in what way does Magneto go, I'm going to stop this bullet from hitting him and then curve it into him?
No, I know. That's the contrived part. That's insane.
So I was like, clearly he's lying.
Doesn't make any sense. No, clearly they thought somehow it makes sense that Magneto can't make a bullet not run into a person or like accident. I don't know. I don't know.
Magic curving bullet, isn't that funny? And it's like not really.
But you could easily make that work. I mean, I'm gonna use a silly example, but it's so weird. And I always wondered if. Sorry, we're talking over time now. I always wondered if there was supposed to be more to that, and it's that problem you get when you're too close to it, where you edit it down and whittle it down to the point where the audience is not going to understand it. And like that happened with some of the time travel conceit at the beginning, where like they cut things they needed, but all you had to do was be like, Magneto was on the grassy knoll, right? Or maybe he wasn't there. He was somewhere else, right? And he's concentrating really hard, and he's moving the bullet, and then like somebody spills hot coffee on him or something. Like you can make it work. There's a way to distract that character so that he accidentally kills JFK. You can do that.
No, I think that's why I thought he was lying the first time too, was that scene to me in the moment played like, oh, we're setting up, like there's going to be like another confrontation later on where we go deeper into this. Like this is kind of like a midpoint discussion, And then that never happened. So, but I wasn't thinking about like, oh, we never went back to that.
It might have been more interesting if he actually killed JFK on purpose, although that's kind of the obvious thing to do.
It is, but going to the JFK assassination in general is the obvious thing to do.
Yeah. I've told this story before.
They should have had Professor X kill JFK, is what we're saying.
No, sure. I've told this story before, but it's one of my favorite things that ever happened in a movie theater. So in case you've never heard me say this, I'm going to bring it up again. But in that scene, the first time I saw it, I'm sitting next to this guy. Have you heard this story?
Yes, I have. The politics thing.
Yeah, thank you for just giving away the. Okay, I'm not even going to tell the story now.
You've told it a million times.
Screw it.
Okay.
All right, I'm not even going to tell it now.
Should have happened.
I just I mean, like we have people listening to that. We do long videos. I don't know. Anyway, I guess I won't tell it now.
Well, no, go ahead.
No, I don't even want to now.
You know what should have happened at the end of that movie is like the Sentinels come out, and then JFK comes out, and he goes, "I am the master mold," and then he transforms into a Sentinel. That's what should have happened.
See, you just want to rewrite that movie entirely.
I do. To make it work.
Oh yeah, that's how it would have worked.
Awesome.
JFK, we're going to remove your brain and put it in a computer. But no, this guy was sitting next to me, and he was like, and I was like, oh my god, JFK is a mutant. What's his power? And the guy goes, politics. Bob the Hunt, $10 super chat. Magneto being
vulnerability.
Magneto being at a concentration camp is inherent and from comics, but him hunting Nazis for revenge is, as an adult, isn't. That's not a given. You might just pair him with Xavier. I get why the writer is pissed off. Well, yeah, and that's why I said I can kind of see their side of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just think like if you're making a Magneto
here's the thing, though. Sorry,
point,
let me say this real quick. When he says it's not a given, you might just pair him with Xavier. No, though, because it was supposed to be a standalone Magneto movie. I bet Xavier's not even in that movie.
No, but I think he means for First Class. Like you could have just had him be like, oh, he's paired with.
Oh, I see.
Xavier.
Yeah, that's.
But
true.
I also think that is like a pretty easy thing to get to. Like, what is Magneto doing before he meets Xavier? Well, he's hunting down the Nazis that did this to him. Like, I think that's like a pretty easy place to get to.
Yeah, well, that's why I say that I could see that happening either way. I could see two totally different writers coming up with that, but I could
Yeah,
also see it
that's all
being
I'm
it.
saying.
But I
Yeah.
could also see it being a thing that they ripped off, considering that
Absolutely.
it's
Go
not
either
in
way.
comics,
Hmm.
and considering that, and that I always thought that they played Magneto, at least it should have been like this from Xavier's perspective, too much like a serial killer for Xavier to trust him and sympathize with him the way he does. I never bought that.
Mm.
It was always crazy to me that there's not even a conversation about it where he's like, you know, I don't know about having you at a school with children when you're like murdering people.
They were Nazis. They don't count as people.
Anyway,
Nazis are not a groovy mutation, is what Xavier thinks. Is all I'm saying.
what are the Nazis' mutant powers? Racism.
Anti-Semitism, yeah.
Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. And next time, we'll try to get as far into 2012 as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Well, next one will be just an entire discussion about the weird female fandom of Loki, and that's all we're talking about.
It's gonna be hard not to do a whole hour on. I was gonna say each year, at least some of these, right? Like you could do a whole hour on 13 really easily.
See, I have a feeling it will be
Or on 14 especially,
like in
but
twos. Where like I feel like we could knock out 12 and 13 together, and then 14, 15. 16 and 17 are hard because they got a lot each.
Because there's so much in them. Yeah, I was just gonna
And
say I could see the
18
Man of Steel conversation going a while.
That is true. That is true. But also some of that will probably ultimately be in the BVS thing too. Like you could go either way.
Yeah.
Get to there.
Or we'll talk too much about BVS when we try to talk about Man of Steel.
Exactly. I mean, all I have to say about Man of Steel is that it's boring.
Yeah, well, I've got more to say about that movie than you probably. Because I was in that camp that really, really liked it the first time around.
Well, I liked it the first time.
Falling off hard.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember.
But in a different way from Superman Returns.
I got the Blu-ray for that movie and went to my dad's and I was like, "You got to check out this Man of Steel movie. It's great." And then I'm watching it and I'm like, "Oh, this sucks." And then like an hour in, my dad gets up and he's like, "I'm going to bed," and he just left.
It's really self-serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that it is.
Well, anyway, we've been out of time for a while. We're going to get going now, but we'll be back in a couple, 3 weeks for another one. And in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. If you would like to support us on Patreon, and thanks for all the support from Super Chat tonight, guys. We really appreciate that. Patreon.com/Geekvolution. The $10 tier makes you a Superhero Rewind producer, and a number of perks that you get there. And I want to, as we always do, and one of those perks is to thank you guys individually at the end of Rewind videos, and this one counts. So thanks very much to one reply, Bill Mills, Chewbacca's lover, Dr. Hello, Elliot Slater, Goofster123, Hayden Spring, Jeff Niederhofer, Joe Turner, Joe Gira, Matt Bat68, Michael Martin, Super Billy, Thomas Edgehill, Adam March, Damon Begay, Hot Soup, Jacob Schneider, Jonathan Campbell, Kareem Roberts, Matthew Brody, Michael Austin Gulick, Miguel Rodriguez, The Day Ghost, and Wendell Jones. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. And we're gonna go ahead and get going. Austin, good job. We got through a few years here.
Thanks. Yeah, we managed to get 2 MCU movies forward, or 3. I keep forgetting Iron Man 2 it exists.
yeah.
I know Iron Man 3 exists.
We didn't really talk about that and how, because I was talking about how Thor was kind of the weakest of those. And I guess I meant more in character introductions, because people think of Iron Man 2 as a worse movie than that. I don't know. I mean,
I think I like Iron Man 2 more than Thor, but I also just like Iron Man. So like,
Sure.
but Iron Man 2 is a weird movie and that I like it, but I would change everything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, Iron Man 2 is one of those movies you watch for the moments, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not a great story, and it's got a villain with a motivation that does not make sense past the halfway point, but
Mhm.
you know,
Sam
but
Rockwell's
Hammer's
fun.
great. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is
The NASCAR race fight is fun.
you watch that movie, yeah, but you wish it was you wish it was in the third act after you get to the third act.
I just wish that he killed Whiplash and that we moved away from him and Hammer was the villain after that. But
oh yeah, that's what it should have been.
yeah,
I mean, you watch that movie for he can't put his head in that. Like, that's why you watch it.
I will summarize this in like a minute.
Yeah,
I'll try not to go too far. But Iron Man 2 should really kill off Whiplash in that scene, and then Hammer's the villain, and he takes that tech and he makes like a bunch of smaller villains that are all just kind of henchmen, but they're all, Iron Man villains because that's what a lot of those guys are, and that's what Hammer does in the comics. And then he can have them attack Tony's party, but he's too drunk, and Rhodey puts on the Iron Man suit and defends him instead of the Iron Man on the Iron Man fight. And then you can do more with the alcoholism instead of the stupid dying thing. And yeah. Anyways, that's my spiel. Good night, everyone.
the reason the dying thing is so funny is because I still say it seems like the secret to making the palladium thing work is make it a triangle.
Oh, I know, it's ridiculous.
It's great. It's you came up with this revolutionary new shape. Call it triangle.
And then Coulson,
and it wasn't even you, it was your dad.
And then Coulson can come in and be like, "Excuse me, Iron Man, I have to leave to meet Thor. Oh yes, here, you need this Captain America shield to use your thing? There you go, bye."
No, it's worse than that. It's I have to leave you to deal with Black Widow so I can go try to get Thor's hammer while I'm hanging out with Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Because all of that is in that movie. Oh, no, it's not. The Hawkeye thing is in Thor.
Hawkeye's in Thor.
But that's going to happen in Thor, where Coulson will go.
Yeah, and the Hawkeye thing is so nothing that it's like, why is he even there? Like, no one's gonna even remember who he is. And the most you're gonna get is that, like, people will rewatch Thor and be like, "Oh yeah, that guy that's like in Avengers is like there, I guess." Like, oh.
No, Black Widow at least gets lines of dialogue and does.
She's a pretty important character.
Does her signature fighting and stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, she's a major character in that movie, which is kind of cool because Black Widow starts as an Iron Man villain. So does Hawkeye, but he gets to go to Thor instead.
He could have done something in that movie, I guess.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of he's got a non-speaking fighting role, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he has like a big tower thing that he sits on.
He's perching. Well, and it I don't know. It makes we're gonna get going.
When you have that really stupid shot where it's like the hands go on the sniper rifle and then they like slowly go up and grab a bow, and it's like that only exists that comic fans will go, "Oh my god, it's Hawkeye." Like,
yeah, I forgot about that. Well, it almost makes the mind control thing in Avengers worse because it's like we've seen him once and he got, no development whatsoever, and he was just there, and you blink, you miss him, and then now we're introducing him to just be a plot device for the bad guy for most of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay. It just screams we don't know what to do with this character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Renner was like, "I'm out. This sucks," and he got a bigger role in Ultron.
And then he got a TV show. And the irony is he got one of the only good Disney Plus TV shows.
That is true, yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
True. It is amazing. And
I mean that show's got issues, but he's not one of them, and his character's written well and consistent.
And of the original Avengers characters, he's gotten the best stuff to work with post Endgame.
Yeah, that's true. He arguably didn't get the best stuff in Endgame.
No, but that is one of the better Hawkeye movies. He gets more to do there than he does anywhere else.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, we're gonna get going now, but we'll see you for another one of these
from the Wolverine
in a couple weeks, and we'll see you for more stuff here on Geekvolution this week. Thanks for watching, guys. Once again, I was Captain Logan. This was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Bye, everybody.
See you, folks.